Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Sustainable Activism webinar. This is our opportunity to gather together and to get some tools for sustainable activism. And it's a program presented by In Defense of Animals, and we provide emotional and spiritual tools for animal activists. This week, we're going to be interviewing Dr. Neal Barnard, and he's going to share some of the benefits of going vegan with you all. So I'm going to share a little bit more about him with you now. We're very honored to have Dr. Barnard with us. Neal Barnard, MD, FACC, is an Adjunct Associate Professor of Medicine at the George Washington University School of Medicine in Washington, D.C., and President of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. Dr. Barnard has led numerous research studies investigating the effects of diet on diabetes, body weight, and chronic pain, including a groundbreaking study of dietary interventions in type 2 diabetes, which was funded by the National Institutes of Health. Dr. Barnard has authored more than 80 scientific publications and 20 books for medical and for lay readers. He founded the Barnard Medical Center in Washington, D.C. as a model for making nutrition a routine part of medical care. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Barnard.
Well, thank you, Lisa. I'm delighted to be with you. I'd like to present tonight, if I may, some things that I hope will be of interest to people who are totally new to the idea of changing the way they eat. But I'd also like to talk to people who might be there already, and hopefully we'll have some new information for them as well.
Great. Well, I think we've got a mix of people on board tonight, and we'll have some people watching us on Facebook Live and also in their various Facebook groups. So again, we're delighted to have you here. And just so everyone knows, we're going to be hearing a presentation with Dr. Barnard, and then following that, we'll open up for questions. So if you want to type your questions in the chat box anytime, that's fine. We'll answer them during the Q&A. And so that's what we've got in store for you tonight. So when you're ready, well, Dr. Barnard.
Lisa, shall I jump in?
Yes, please do.
All right. I'm going to show you some slides, if I may. If I can just share my screen with you. All right. Now, Lisa, can you see it? Can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Very good. Okay. And for anybody who's watching, if you see a little black square there in the middle, you could just move that around with your mouse. Okay, I want to talk about the power of nutrition for health. And this work, isn't this wonderful? My screen has frozen in the middle of this presentation. Let me get out of it. There we are. Okay. For me, the page really turned back in around 1990, which is when Dr. Dean Ornish wanted to take a step beyond what people had done before that in looking at food. He wanted to see not can you slow down heart disease, but can you actually reverse it? And so he did what he would have called a lifestyle intervention. That means you change the diet, you change exercise, all kinds of things. And he compared it to people getting the usual medical care, which was cholesterol-lowering drugs and that kind of thing. So he had an experimental program that included 4 steps. Step 1, vegetarian diet. Now, why would you have vegetarian foods for a heart patient? Why? Well, no cholesterol, right? No animal fat. And it was actually almost a vegan diet. He excluded all meats, all fish, all chicken. In this first program, he did allow about a cup of non-fat dairy and some egg whites, but other than that, it was totally vegan. And later studies that he did were entirely vegan. A half-hour walk every day, manage stress, and avoid tobacco, and that was it. There was no use of medications, no surgery, no nothing. And after a year, some remarkable things happened. First of all, total cholesterol dropped 24%. That's huge. And are you familiar with LDL cholesterol, low density lipoprotein, sometimes called bad cholesterol? LDL is the cholesterol that really contributes to heart disease, and it dropped by 37%. That's the kind of thing that medications do. But he did this just with diet and lifestyle changes. Your average person lost 22 pounds, which was nice, but what made medical history was everybody had an angiogram. That's an X-ray of the heart that shows you the tiny trickle of blood that gets through to the heart muscle. And he compared the results of an angiogram done at the beginning of the study and another one done after a year. And it was amazing. The arteries were actually opening up again so much that you could see a measurable difference in 82% of patients with no drugs and no surgery. Now let me show you what we're talking about. This is a slide that I got from my good friend Caldwell Esselstyn, a surgeon at the Cleveland Clinic, whom many of you are probably familiar with. This patient was actually a doctor. And that big bracketed area, this is called the distal left anterior descending artery. And it's supposed to be a nice open tube, but you see it's all crinkly and abnormal. This person is headed for serious problems. However, this patient was a physician, and he decided, let me make some big diet changes, and he did. 32 months, low-fat, vegan diet, no animal products, no lipid-lowering drugs. In other words, there was no cholesterol-lowering medication. And look what happened. It's amazing. This artery opened up again. And so we're not talking about trivial changes here. We're talking about the body reclaiming its health. So our research team said, all right, what would this do for a person who didn't have heart disease necessarily, but maybe just wanted to lose some weight? So we brought in 64 women. They were all overweight, all after the age of menopause, and they had all done Atkins, South Beach, Nutrisystem, Jenny Craig, you name it, they'd done it, and they felt stuck. What we asked them to do was a low-fat vegan diet versus what I'm going to call a conventional diet. The conventional diet was not so much red meat, more white meat, cut down meat in general, less fatty foods, that kind of thing. That was the conventional diet. But we didn't use any calorie limits. We didn't use exercise. We didn't provide food. But the intervention group was on a low-fat vegan diet. So what does vegan really mean? Vegan simply means that if somebody has brought some chicken into your house, you throw it in the trash. If somebody's brought some cheese, Cheetos or something, they go in the trash too. Spam in the trash. All the animal products are not part of the diet. Okay? That's all it means. So what's left? Fruits, grains, vegetables, and legumes. What are legumes? Beans, right? Beans, peas, lentils, things that grow in a pod. And our participants were initially horrified to see that we were going to feed them foods that they thought must be fattening, like blueberry pancakes or fruit or linguine, pasta. They had all kind of been brainwashed with this idea that if you eat carbohydrate-rich food, you gain weight. Well, they were free to eat as much of these foods as they wanted to. And I have to say, about week 3 of this research study, one of the participants learned something that unfortunately surprised everybody. She said, I found a treat that you can have on a vegan diet, and the treat was Twizzlers. You know Twizzlers, those red licorice things they sell at the 7-Eleven? Well, it's true. Twizzlers are vegan, meaning there's no animal products in them. It's just sugary, starchy, artificially colored junk. And she made sure that all the research participants knew they could eat all the Twizzlers they wanted. That wasn't what we were intending, but when you do research, you set your rules. So our low-fat, vegan, Twizzler-fueled research participants set off on their path to the unknown, and their carbohydrate intake did go up because you're eating more rice, you're eating beans, you're eating starchy vegetables. But in the control group, their carbohydrate intake went down. They were following the National Cholesterol Education Program and reducing portion sizes a bit. And then when we looked at their fat intake, it dropped in both groups, but it dropped more in the vegan group because, let's face it, you're not eating any chicken fat anymore. But when we looked at body weight, the vegan group lost 5.8 kilograms. That's about 13 pounds in 14 weeks, compared to the control group that lost weight, but only about 8 pounds. So without counting calories, a vegan diet causes weight loss. And then we looked at our same participants after 2 more years. And on the control group, the weight came back. On the vegan diet, it never did. So it's great stuff. So you might ask, how does this work? How do you lose weight on a plant-based diet where you're eating unlimited calories, unlimited carbohydrates, but you're losing weight? Well, the first thing is that you're getting lots of fiber. Fiber is plant roughage. There's a lot of roughage in beans and vegetables and fruits and whole grains, and fiber has effectively no calories, but it fills you up. The second thing, though, is that when you're avoiding animal fat, and if you're keeping vegetable fats low too, getting the fat out has special magic for weight loss. This is going to be on the test. Fats have 9 calories per gram, whereas carbohydrates have only 4. So if you're not eating any animal fat because it's a vegan diet, and you're keeping vegetable oils pretty low too, you're eating more carbs, less fat, and that means you're getting fewer calories. So your overall diet has what we call a lower energy density. There's just not so many calories packed in there because it's high in fiber, which really doesn't have calories, and it's low in fat. Now, for all those people who think, well, I'm just not going to eat so much beef, I'll have more chicken. The leanest beef is about 29% fat, the leanest chicken, not much lower, about 23. Fish varies, some are higher, like Chinook salmon at 52% fat, tuna lower. But compare that to the plant foods. Broccoli and beans and rice and sweet potatoes, super low fat. So they don't have a lot of calories. Look at that. Cheese, 70% fat, mostly the bad fat, saturated fat, the kind that clogs your arteries. Now, but it's not just the fact that people are getting a lot of fiber and fewer calories. There's something about their after-meal calorie burn that changes too. Normally, when you have a meal, your body burns calories faster. But after people have been vegan for a period of time, they're burning calories after a meal even faster than before. In our research studies, we find that switching to a vegan diet increases the after-meal burn by about 16%. That's not huge, but it's enough to help people to stay slimmer. And we realize that what's happening is that the mitochondria, those are the burners inside your muscles and other cells, they're revved up into overdrive, burning calories faster and helping you to stay slimmer. So the National Institutes of Health said, great, why don't we try this diet for people who have type 2 diabetes? So we did a 74-week trial in folks who had type 2 diabetes, and we did 3 things. Vegan diet, meaning no animal products, low fat, which really meant teach them non-fat cooking methods, and then also favor low GI foods. What's that? The glycemic index is a way of telling about the effect of foods on your blood sugar. So if you have white bread, your blood sugars going to tend to rise, right? But if you have rye bread, your blood sugar, it doesn't rise so much. And if it's pumpernickel, even less. So we're not going to go low carbohydrate, not at all. But we're going to choose the carbohydrate-rich foods that are gentle on your blood sugar. We compared that to a conventional diet based on the guidelines of the American Diabetes Association, which mostly meant cut calories, limit carbohydrate, not much more than that. So the dietary intervention, no animal products, minimize oils, low glycemic index. And to cut to the chase, what we measure in people who have diabetes is something called A1C. That's a measure of your blood sugar control over about a 3-month period. And if a person has diabetes, we want to see their A1C below 7. At the beginning of the study, our participants were not at around 7. They were averaging around 8. And on this graph, that red line is the conventional diet. And they did okay. They dropped about 0.4 percentage points. That's all right. But the vegan group, that's the blue line, they dropped 3 times more. It's fantastic. If you had a drug that was that effective, that would be a great drug. But this drug was called a vegan diet. Now, why does this work? Let me explain this. Let me ask you to set aside your phone or anything else. I want you to look exactly at this slide because I'm going to show you the cause of type 2 diabetes, okay? This is a muscle cell. This big blue blob here is a muscle cell. And the reason I'm showing you a muscle is that that's where glucose is going. Most of the glucose, the sugar in your blood, is trying to get into your muscles to power them. So there's the glucose outside the cell. To get in, it has to go through those sort of purple little channels to get inside the cell. Well, it can't get into that muscle cell without a key, and that key is insulin. Insulin is made in the pancreas, and it's like a key in a lock, except it's the insulin molecule attaching to those red receptors. And when it does, it signals those channels to let the glucose in. Here it comes. Now, if you got type 2 diabetes, You've got muscle cells, you've got glucose, you've got insulin, you've got receptors, all that is normal. What's not normal is the fact you've got fat building up inside your cells. That's those yellow blobs. That's beef fat, chicken fat, fish fat, olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. Now, doctors don't like words like fat because it has only one syllable, so we'll call it intramyocellular lipid, but that means fat building up inside your muscle cells. Think of this. If the fat is building up inside the muscle cells, it interferes with that signaling process. So the insulin key attaches to the receptor, but it can't signal through the cell because the cell is filled with fat. And that explains why the vegan diet was so effective. Because how much animal fat is there in a vegan diet? Well, there isn't any, right? And if we keep the vegetable oils low as well, then the fat in that cell starts to dissipate. And the diabetes improves, or sometimes it even goes away. So fruits, grains, vegetables, legumes. That's a healthy diet. Now, if you're following a vegan diet already, are you sick to death of hearing this question? Where do you get your protein? A lot of people still ask that. Let me just walk you through this. The recommended daily allowance of protein, according to the U.S. government, is about 0.4 grams per pound. Now, that means for an average woman, 46 grams of protein a day. For a man, 56. That's what the government says you need. Now, the truth is you need a bit less than that, but they've got a little margin for error. So where am I going to get that? People think, well, meat or eggs. And they imagine, well, I don't know about vegetables and fruits. Do they have protein in them? Did you grow up with this idea? The meat on your plate was the protein. The vegetables, well, that was the vitamins. And the potatoes or the other starch was just the carbohydrate. If you took the meat away, you imagined the protein's all gone. Well, the surprise is that vegetables have protein too. Let's say, in fact, on a certain day you ate maybe 2,000 calories a day. That would be a pretty good average. What if you ate nothing but broccoli all day? You got 2,000 calories worth of broccoli. Well, if you did that, you would get, believe it or not, 146 grams of pure protein. The next day, if you ate nothing but lentils, you would get, in a 2,000 calorie diet, 157 grams of pure protein. Now, hopefully you're not having just broccoli or just lentils, but plants have lots and lots of protein in them. So any normal variety of beans, vegetables, fruits, grains gives you more than enough protein without specially combining it or without counting protein grams. Okay? According to the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, vegetarian diets and vegan diets meet the recommended protein intakes, and that's true for anybody at any age, including athletes. All right, so when it comes to calcium, where does calcium come from? People think, well, it comes from milk, right? It comes from a cow. Well, there is calcium in milk, but calcium is not made by a cow. Calcium is an element in the earth, and the calcium goes into the roots of grass, and the cow eats the grass, the calcium ends up in the milk, and then you absorb about 32% of the calcium in the cow's milk. Instead, if you eat the green vegetables directly, hopefully not grass, but kale, collards, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, whatever, you'll get highly absorbable calcium in the form nature intended. So here are some numbers for you. There's plenty of calcium in broccoli and collards and kale, mustard greens, Swiss chard. I put spinach in parentheses here because there's a lot of calcium in it, but spinach is a selfish vegetable, meaning that its calcium is not very well absorbed. But here's how much is absorbed. Look at that, Brussels sprouts, 64% calcium absorption. That's double calcium absorption of milk. So for calcium, where do you go? Green leafy vegetables are your best source. It's also in lots of other plants, but green leafies are really super good. You should supplement vitamin B12. B12 is something you need for healthy nerves and healthy blood. You don't need much. The recommended daily allowance is only 2.4 micrograms per day. But the funny thing is, vitamin B12 is not made by animals or plants. It's made by bacteria. And some people will reason that before the advent of modern hygiene, the traces of bacteria in the soil, on plants, on your hands, maybe in your mouth would give you traces of B12. Maybe. But with modern hygiene, those days are certainly gone. You can get some B12 from fortified products. There's many brands of soy milk or nutritional yeast or other products that have added B12. But for safety, you really ought to take a vitamin B12 supplement. It's in every vitamin supplement you ever took. I'm talking about multiple vitamins. But you don't really need much of all of the multiple vitamins. You really just need the B12. So if you go to the store and get that, you'll be fine. Okay, let me run through a couple of other questions, and then we'll see if you have questions. What about olive oil? Well, olive oil is much healthier compared to other kinds of fats. Take a look at coconut fat, 83% fat. 83% saturated fat. Saturated fat is the bad fat. Beef fat, about half saturated fat, and coconut oil is out there on the right at, olive oil is out there on the right at about 13.8%. So the quality of olive oil is much better than animal fats. However, let me draw an analogy for just a second. Did you ever eat some sugar cane? Were you able to get through very much? No, it's so fibrous, it's really hard to eat much of it. But if you had a factory that extracted the sugar from sugar cane, could you eat a lot of that? Absolutely. It dissolves in water. You can make a soda out of it. You can get sugar all day long. Well, let's say we have olives. Are there a lot of calories in olives? Well, there's a lot of fiber and pulp. You don't really get very far by eating the olives alone. But if you had a factory that extracted the oil and packed it into a bottle, let me run some numbers. 50 grams of olives versus 50 grams of olive oil. 7.7 grams of fat in the olives, 50 grams in the olive oil. When it comes to bad fat, 1.7 grams in the olives, 6.9 in the olive oil. And look at the calories, 442 in just 50 grams of olive oil. That's just 4 tablespoons. So when you're extracting out the oils and putting them in a bottle and pouring them all over your foods, you're getting a source of calories that nature never thought you'd have, because nature packed that olive oil in an olive. Nature packed corn oil in corn. And when you extract it, that's when the problems start. Okay? What about coconut oil? Coconut oil comes from the coconut palm. There's also the oil palm, which is different. That's where the palm oil comes from. And it's added to a lot of products, and some people say it's natural and healthy. Well, look at it. Pretty waxy looking. And if you look at its effect on your blood cholesterol level, researchers have compared different kinds of oils. Safflower oil is one of many very liquid oils, like corn oil or soybean oil. Coconut oil is fattier and thicker, and it tends to raise your blood cholesterol level, whether you're looking at total cholesterol or your bad LDL cholesterol. Bottom line, coconut oil raises cholesterol. So use it to shine your shoes, use it to slick back your hair, but don't eat it. Coconut oil is not good for you. Okay? What about fish? Some folks say, well, fish has got to be healthier than beef. Well, is it? At the top, I've got animal products. At the bottom of this slide, we're looking at plant products. See any differences? Look at the cholesterol numbers. There's no cholesterol in the plants. There's lots of cholesterol in the animal products. Then look at the saturated fat. Same thing. Not much in the plants, lots in the animals. So where are the fish? There they are. See that Chinook salmon there? Is it more like black beans and brown rice, or is it more like the animal products? It's clear that Chinook salmon is about like beef when it comes to cholesterol and saturated fat. Well, hopefully I've convinced you that a vegan diet is the way to go. And if you're thinking, I'd like to give it a try, let me show you how we introduced vegan diets in our research studies. We break it into 2 steps, and I have never seen anyone unable to do this. Step 1, check out the possibilities. Here's what I mean. We're going to take 7 days. Take a week. Don't take anything out of your diet yet. All you're doing is trying out new foods to see which vegan foods you like. So the idea is, what has no animal products that you might want to try? Take a piece of paper and write down breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack. And your job for the next 7 days is to fill out that paper with possible foods that you would like. So they've all got to be vegan, free of animal products. So oatmeal for breakfast, well, let's flavor it up with some cinnamon, some raisins. My cornflakes, I always have heavy cream on them, or skim milk, or whatever it is. I never tried almond milk. This week, we're going to try it. Or hemp milk, or rice milk, or soy milk, or oat milk, or whatever it might be. If you want to try a breakfast scrambler with scrambled tofu instead of scrambled eggs, that's your job this week. The idea is to find breakfasts that are vegan that you like. Same for lunch. Can I make a pizza without cheese? Let's try it. If I'm at the taco restaurant, is the bean burrito any good? Let's see. I haven't tried a veggie burger. Let's try a couple of brands, see which ones you like. Then maybe at an Italian restaurant, you could have spaghetti with the arrabbiata sauce, the marinara sauce, the pasta e fagioli, the side vegetables. You can have the espresso afterwards if you want to. These are all vegan choices. Latin American cuisine, veggie fajitas, bean burritos, beans and rice. Chinese restaurants have, frankly, dozens of great meals made from rice, vegetables, tofu. Extra points for Japanese because whether it's edamame or the wonderfully delightful and light salads or veggie sushi, they're totally vegan, free of animal products, and they're usually very, very low in oils as well. Now, Subway, will they make you a vegan sub? You bet. They'll pile on the lettuce and the tomatoes and the onions and the cucumbers and spinach and the red wine vinegar, and they'll toast it for you. Taco Bell, maybe not the pinnacle of culinary art, but it works. They'll give you a bean burrito, hold the cheese. That's vegan. Okay, so I filled out my list. It took me 7 days, and I found all kinds of things that I really like. So that was step one. Now, let's go to step two. Step two is to eat the foods that you decided you liked. We're going to take 3 weeks and do a test drive. All vegan, all the time, using those wonderful foods that you already identified and hopefully have stocked up on, okay? At the end of 3 weeks, 2 things will have happened. The first is physically your body is changing. You're losing weight. Your blood sugar is probably dropping if you have diabetes. If you have high cholesterol, that's probably getting better. If your blood pressure has been high, that's probably getting better too. Your digestion is finally sorting itself out. You're feeling better. But the second thing is beyond those physical changes, your tastes are starting to adjust as well. You weren't expecting that, but you're finding that you're not craving those animal products that you're leaving behind, and you're enjoying this process of exploring new foods. Use the transition foods if you want to. I'm talking about veggie bacon instead of pork bacon or veggie sausage instead of meat sausage. Go ahead and try those if you'd like. But as time goes on, you'll discover you want simpler, healthier foods like beans and vegetables and fruits and whole grains. Let me mention a few resources that I'd encourage you to try. Go to our website, pcrm.org, and you'll find the 21-day vegan kickstart. What I'm talking about is messages that you get every day. It's downloadable on your iPhone, downloadable on your Android. It is a free app. Do this today. 21-day vegan kickstart. Download it. Put it to work. It's in English. It's also in Spanish. We have a program in Mandarin. We have a program in Japanese. We have a program for people from India, which is Indian foods, an English language program. If you are a doctor, nurse, dietitian, we have a free app for you. The Nutrition Guide for Clinicians covers everything from Alzheimer's disease to varicose veins. It's a free download. Just go to Nutrition Guide for Clinicians at your app store. Download it for free. We have another website called Nutrition CME. That stands for Continuing Medical Education. So this is where doctors, nurses, and others will get the continuing education they need. This is all nutrition, and it's all free. A couple of books that I wanted to share with you. This is my Reversing Diabetes cookbook. It's big, it's beautiful, it's filled with recipes that are delicious and appealing, but they're part of the solution to diabetes. But frankly, it's great even if you don't have diabetes. And my newest book, The Vegan Starter Kit, I wanted to write a book that was little and skinny and that you could read in 45 minutes and get the confidence that you need for putting this to work. You'll see the Vegan Starter Kit and my diabetes book and other books on Amazon or other online booksellers. And if there's a bookshop in your neighborhood, they'd appreciate your business. So jump in, have a look at the Vegan Starter Kit. Let me stop at that point. I want to thank you for your attention. I hope you found this helpful. Back to you, Lisa.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Barnard. I really enjoyed hearing your presentation. There's so many times that people ask me these questions and I don't have the answer on the tip of my tongue, and now I can clearly say, oh yes, for protein, if you just have a plate full of vegetables and eat a variety, you will definitely, I can say that with confidence now, you will definitely get the protein that you need. So I think this is helpful for us, for those of us who are animal activists and vegans, because we can bring some of these tools to people that we know, and people that we meet along the way, and also for those of us who may be kind of on the fence and wondering a bit about veganism but love animals, and so having this information is super helpful. And I like your new book title about a vegan starter kit. That's really a good one. So let's see. I want to check to see if anyone has any questions. So if you've joined us on Facebook Live, you're welcome to type your questions right into the news feed, or if you're with us on the webinar here, you're welcome to type into the chat box. It looks like we do have a couple of questions. I'm going to share them with everyone. So one question is, Dr. Barnard, do you concur that a vegan diet lowers the white blood cell count, but that this poses no health risk? If so, why not? And this person is sharing, his name is Michael, that his white blood cell count did drop measurably when he went vegan.
Okay, first of all, what are white blood cells? The red blood cells are the oxygen carriers. They carry oxygen from your lungs to all the rest of your body. The white blood cells are the sentries. They are looking for infections. They're looking for viruses, bacteria. They're looking for the occasional cancer cell. They're looking for things that don't belong there, and their job is to get rid of them. So when people are on healthier diets, their white blood cells counts can drop a bit. If you are unhealthy, if you have an infection, your white blood count is going to rise a lot. So it's not surprising that your white blood cell count is going to drop a little bit. Now, obviously, when you're interpreting blood tests of any kind, I encourage you to do this in the context of your overall health, and do it with the advice of your doctor. But generally speaking, if your blood cell count is in the normal range and your white blood cell count is on the lower end of normal, that's not the kind of thing that a doctor is going to get worried about at all.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
I'm sure Michael is appreciating that information. We also have a comment from Liz, and she joined. She actually wants to thank you for your Break Up with Bacon campaign. She is very happy to be a supporter of PCRM. So we have people who are familiar with your work and wanted to support you and join the webinar to hear what you have to say.
Oh, well, thank you for mentioning that. I really appreciate that. You know, we've had doctors going out into the community, and they would go to McDonald's and other places where they're advertising, have more bacon. Bacon's become kind of a fad. There's now bacon-flavored soap and so forth. What people are forgetting, apart from the fact that bacon comes from, let's face it, anybody who has had a look inside a pig farm knows that for the animals, for the environment, and for your health, there's almost nothing more sickening than all of that. But people think, yeah, what the heck, let's party with this bacon food. And so fast food chains have been promoting it a lot. We've had doctors going out holding big placards trying to remind people that bacon and other processed meats are the biggest contributors to colorectal cancer, which is a cancer that's actually increasing in young people. So people may love bacon, doesn't love you back. Time to break up.
I appreciate that as well, for health reasons and also for just the kindness factor. I saw a video of that most of these pigs that do go to slaughter are babies. They're quite young, and one was just shaking, and the other piglets in the sort of cell environment were cannibalizing this piglet, and it just was so sad. And I think that's some of the scenes behind closed doors that many of us just don't have the opportunity to see, and if we did, we would definitely want to take a stand against that kind of cruelty. So
Absolutely.
Thank you for adding that health motivator too. We have a couple of other questions for you. So what are your thoughts? This is from Elisa. She's asking, what are your thoughts on the raw living foods lifestyle to reverse disease?
Okay. I think it's fair to say that our ancestors many, many, many years ago didn't have sterno. They weren't cooking their food. They didn't have stoves. They were eating raw foods. And so I think bringing raw foods into your diet is a good thing. The question I have, though, is which foods were they? Because human beings presumably originated as a species in Eastern Africa, And from there, we wandered around to up into Asia and over the Bering Strait and into North America and South America and so forth. And the foods, the raw foods that are healthiest for us, I am going to assume would probably be the raw foods that were indigenous to Africa. Once we got to North America, people were eating tomatoes or corn or peanuts, which were not African foods at all. So I think it requires a little bit of exploration to figure out which foods are the best for us. But as a general rule, bringing more raw foods into our diet is a good thing. Now, that said, I think that sometimes when people eat things like broccoli or cauliflower or other cruciferous vegetables, they find that they're not really very well digested that way. So for them, cooking is a little bit better, I think, than having them raw. But on the other hand, there are so many fruits, mangoes and papayas and oranges and bananas and all the others that obviously do great as raw, and there are many vegetables that work out that way as well. So the more the better, sure.
Well, that's wonderful. A great attitude to bring in a lot of these raw fruits and veggies and then to notice how it feels for you and adjust it. Let's see, we have a couple of other questions here. So do you have any messages? I had given the introduction to this series of talks that is about how do we sustain our activism. For those of us who care about animals, who've been working in the animal rights movement. So how do you have any messages for activists? This is another question, to take care of themselves.
Well, I think like anybody who's got important work to do, whether the work you do is any kind of job or whether it's taking care of your family, or in the case of activism, let's face it, you're trying to change the world. So you do want to take care of yourself. That means get adequate rest, eat in a healthy way, stay away from all the junk, and try to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. But I would also suggest that you not get overly preoccupied with this, with these kinds of things. Take basically good care of yourself, but let's get back to work. There's a lot of stuff to be done to clean up the world that we live in, to take care of the animals, take care of the environment, take care of your family. Yeah, you do want to make sure that you're doing all the basics and not burning your candle at too many ends at one time. But we can all do that.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing that information. And so this is another health kind of related questions. What do you think about sprouted foods? Is that something that's on your,
Yeah. I think that's fine. This is maybe an add-on to the question we had earlier about raw foods. Yeah. If you're going to eat a dried bean, good luck to you. But on the other hand, you can sprout it. So you take mung beans and you can sprout them, and they work out great. They're delicious. You can put them on a sandwich or eat them as a salad or whatever it might be.
So there's some flexibility depending on what type of food it is. It may be better sprouted or sometimes soaked and cooked. So it sort of depends on the person and what they want to do. So I have another question for you. What would you suggest for evaluation if a plant-based lifestyle doesn't lead to weight loss? This person, Ashlyn, is sharing that she's been plant-based for 1 year and hasn't experienced weight loss. Okay. She definitely feels better and loves the lifestyle change, but has had a little concern about not having any weight loss.
Okay. Well, first of all, let's make sure that you really do need to lose weight or want to lose weight. If you're already at a normal weight and a healthy weight, a vegan diet isn't going to make you blow away. And if you're wondering if you're in a good weight range, we use the body mass index for that. You can go online, and if you just look up BMI calculator, you go online, you'll find a million of them, and you plug in your weight and your height, and it will tell you. And a healthy body mass index is between 18.5 and 25. So if you've gone online and you've done it, and you're at 27 or 28 or 30 or 35, you do want to lose some weight, for sure. So let's say you've gone vegan, but you're not losing as much weight as you'd like, or maybe you're not losing weight at all. The usual reason for that is you've done really good with step one. You've gotten rid of all the animal stuff. But if there are fatty plant foods that are there, remember the slide that I showed? There's 9 calories per gram in every gram of fat. So peanut butter, avocado, guacamole, nuts, and vegetable oils, those pack in the calories. So if you're careful about those foods as well and set them aside, you're going to typically lose weight.
Thank you for addressing that question. And we have another question for you, and this is from Trish, and she's wondering if you could tell a little bit about your journey to embrace veganism, both personally, or like for example, for ethical reasons, or for health reasons, and as well as professionally.
I grew up in North Dakota, and I come from a long line of cattle ranchers and was really kind of oblivious to all this. But the year before I went to medical school, I had a job helping out I was the autopsy assistant in a hospital, meaning when somebody died in the hospital, I would help the pathologist to examine the body. And one day there was a person who died in the hospital of a massive heart attack, probably from eating hospital food, but that's another story. And so the pathologist was examining the body, and he removed a big chunk of ribs off the chest to expose the heart. And he wanted me to see this because he knew I was going to go to medical school the following year. And it was frightening. He sliced open one of the coronary arteries, and he explained they're called coronary arteries because they crown the heart and look inside. So I looked in, and it was filled with what looked like chewing gum, but it was plaques of cholesterol and debris from eating animal products. And this person had the same atherosclerotic process in the carotid arteries to the brain and the other major arteries. So this was quite an eye-opener for me. And at the end of that particular day, the pathologist wrote up his report and he left the room, and I had to clean up. So I put the ribs back in the chest, and I sewed up the skin and cleaned everything up. And then I went up to the hospital cafeteria, and they were serving ribs for lunch. And I want to tell you, it looked like a dead body, and it smelled like a dead body, and I realized this is a dead body. It's not a human being, but I couldn't eat it. And as time went on, I started to learn more about several things. I learned about the mistreatment of animals, which frankly I had been part of. When I was a kid, my father would take us out hunting. I drove cattle to slaughter with my uncle. It was kind of life in North Dakota. I started to rethink that from the animal standpoint, but also from a health standpoint. And around the same time, people started to connect the environment with this as well, that we're doing no favors for the earth we're in if we're feeding plants to animals in order to get a little bit of meat out of them. It's a win-win-win to go to a completely plant-based diet, and that means a vegan diet.
Wow, that is very eye-opening to be in that situation and have that direct connection with the ribs. I'm always kind of stunned when people eat ribs because it's so clearly part of a body in that way. And then to see for yourself the plaque in the arteries, I know that's very important for people in the medical field. Actually, my dad saw lungs during his residency that were blackened from smoking, and so he quit smoking. So I think some of those moments are really transformative for people.
You bet.
Yeah, so we're having some positive feedback. People are saying, thank you so much for sharing, and it's wonderful to hear your personal story. So I want to thank you so much for sharing your both personal story and also all of the nutritional information that you shared with us today. Those are very important details that as activists, it's helpful to have them at the tip of our tongue. And also for those of us who maybe love animals and haven't taken that step to really know the nitty-gritty and be able to make that choice for health reasons, for compassionate reasons, and also to clean up our planet.
Well, thank you. These are all good reasons. And I have to say, I find that when patients that we work with in our research studies go vegan, maybe just to improve their diabetes, to lose weight, to get their cholesterols down, as time goes on, they start to think about other things. They start to think, what a crazy world that we've grown up in where people are eating the muscles off of animals, or they eat the liver out of a chicken, and we end up getting sick as a result. And as time goes on, these other motivators come in, and that's a good thing, because if you're trying to stay healthy, but the only thing you're thinking about is your own health, sometimes people will compromise a little bit. But when you think about all that's at stake, people very often really do want to stick with it. So Lisa, I want to thank you, and I want to thank all the people that were listening with us tonight, and I look forward to connecting with you again. In the event that people are in Washington, D.C., let me invite you to come by our Barnard Medical Center, which is a primary care clinic where we see people and we provide regular medical care, but nutrition is always part of everybody's care program. Vegan diets are front and center. So I would hope people will come by and visit us.
Yes, well, thank you for letting us all know, and there's lots of opportunities to do that. Especially we have our animal rights conference right in that area coming up this summer, so that might be a good time for people to stop by. And
you bet. Thank you so much, Lisa.
yes, thank you, and thanks to everyone who joined us. We hope that you'll continue staying tuned in to our webinars. We have one every week, and you can find out who's speaking and more information on our events page, which is at idausa.org/events. And for those of you who need support, whether it's transitioning to a vegan diet or if you have concerns or about, could be how you're relating to others with your newfound veganism, you're welcome to call us at on our support line, which is 800-705-0425. So we're getting lots of thank yous from everyone, and just people saying thank you. You are such a motivator, and they really appreciated this webinar tonight. So thank you, Dr. Barnard. I hope you have a lovely evening, and thanks to everyone who joined us. Take care. Good night.
Thanks a lot. Thanks. Good night now.